Despite a lot of protests from people on my campaign team, I do everything I can to keep my Facebook page open to comment by basically anyone. Now, the reason that people are upset about this is that there are a lot of trolls, and some of these people I do not believe think that they're trolls. They do not realize that they're spreading disinformation and that they have bought into just ridiculous lies. But they are trolls. And the problem here is that when you see somebody spreading just incessantly ridiculous stuff that has no foundation in fact, it makes it, well, from my perspective, it makes them look nuts. From the perspective of my team and my supporters, it makes people who see that feel like maybe there's another side there. So one thing that I want to address, and I think this is an important thing, completely irrespective of my candidacy, campaign, any of this stuff. If you are reading information, and when I say reading, I mean it could be videos, it could be listening to stuff, but when you are consuming information, you have to be genuinely skeptical. So what is genuine skepticism? Genuine skepticism means not that anything that contradicts what you believe automatically gets thrown out. It means that when you see something that makes something that you do believe, that brings that into question, you have to really think, am I wrong? Is this new information? So is this something that, like, have I been believing something that is not true? And if you're genuinely skeptical, you will be more skeptical of the things that you believe than new information coming in. Because there's no one who can fool us better than us ourselves. Now, one way that you can do this, and this is complicated, it's admittedly complicated, people are not trained in it. I understand why this is a problem, and I also understand why some people who have not been trained in this stuff will see something that someone like me does, and then see stuff that they're doing, and they don't see the difference because they haven't been trained to see the difference. There's nothing that remarkable about it. There's nothing that magical about it that you have to have a PhD to be able to do it, but you have to have the training. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a primer here. This is going to be very short for the amount of information that there is. So don't at all consider what I say here comprehensive. Just think of it as a tipping off point, hopefully to give you an idea. And then hopefully you will go from there. So one of the things that is a major problem, and this is a conflict that I have myself, because we live in a time where being an expert basically counts for nothing. It does not mean anything. If I am an expert, and I am an expert in several fields, when I say something, plenty of people who have no expertise feel like they know as much as I do on the subject, simply because they've Googled it. Now, the problem is, of course, when you're Googling it, the algorithm on Google, the system that is showing you results, knows who you are. It knows a lot of things about you. It knows what you like and what you don't like. It knows that you typically go to certain kinds of pages. So you really like conservative news, you really like liberal news, whatever. It actually shows you results that are consistent with what it thinks you want, which sounds like a great thing, but that means that you are enclosed in this echo chamber. Even when you're trying to verify information and sources, if you Google something, you will see more stuff supporting you rather than stuff supporting the truth, which makes the truth murky. So what you have to do, and you have to be very careful about this, is know that expertise does not mean everything. Just because I'm an expert does not mean I'm always right. An example I always like to give is Linus Pauling. He had, I believe, 2 Nobel Prizes, a couple PhDs, really good guy. But he also, and very competent, but he also became obsessed with this idea that vitamin C was a wonder drug. And he pushed it so hard, and his expertise was abused so badly, that today, despite decades of other information showing us that he was wrong, even I, who know that he was wrong, have a tiny part of me that thinks vitamin C is good for you when you're sick. It is incredibly insidious and dangerous. So you have to be skeptical of experts. But you also have to know that experts are experts. Experts have spent a considerable amount of time and effort learning about a field. And in their domain of expertise, they may not always be right, but if they are wrong, they are almost certainly wrong for reasons that are better than the reasons that you might be right, which means you have to at least listen to them. Don't necessarily take everything they say as gospel. Don't do that at all, in fact. But don't discount it at all, either. If I'm an expert and I say X, look into it, see why I think that, and then weigh the evidence for yourself. And be very careful to weigh it for yourself and not to have other people weigh it for you, because that is one of the big dangers, and it's one of the, I feel like that's one of the major problems we have now. We have a lot of people who, for example, and I'm going to pick on Fox News because it is one of the worst offenders, but it's true of other news sources as well. But people watch Fox, they listen to Rush Limbaugh, they listen to Alex Jones, and these people are in another universe. Like, everybody has a bit of bias. Every news organization, every broadcaster, every reporter has some bias. But these are things where they are not even in contact with reality. It is, from an objective perspective, almost horrifying to look at, because it is so wildly, like, it's not even like a different interpretation of events. It is essentially a fiction, like a complete construct that has no contact with reality. And you see that, and that would not in and of itself be so bad, but many people see that and they absorb it unskeptically, they marinate in it, and they believe it. And that is terrible. That means that those people are going to be extremely misguided. They are going to be unwittingly doing things and pushing things that are very bad. And, you know, believing things like that, the common example that comes up all the time is that there are people, I know people personally who think Hillary Clinton has whacked something like 50 people. You know, it's like, oh, she hasn't been convicted, but I'm pretty sure of it. Now, if this was true, then this would have come up, like, you have to understand, she has been investigated more than probably any person alive, possibly any person in history. She has been investigated over and over again by people who are essentially her enemies, looking for anything they could find, and they have not come up with a damn thing. If she had unpaid parking tickets, we would know about it. You think that she could actually do something like that and get away with it, given all of these investigations? I mean, it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. And it's also a testament to how bad this is, how bad this situation is, that people believe this stuff. So, one of the things that I run on, and I care very deeply about, like, all politicians say, oh, I support education. Well, I support public education that is very good. Vouchers seem like a good idea, but when you look at the statistics, all they do is give a discount coupon to rich people who can already afford to put their kids in private schools. If you are somebody who lives in a place where there's a bad school district and you have no money, the vouchers are not going to come near what you need to pay to put your kids in a good school. On the other hand, if you didn't take that money out of the system, we could actually afford to have good public schools for your kids. We could take care of that. So, to me, this is, I mean, it's just such a blind and selfish thing. And it's also, like, I understand, again, everybody, I don't begrudge people who work hard and earn a lot of money. But I do begrudge people who have a lot of advantages, and then we're going to give them discount coupons and essentially benefits where it's like, well, you're already rich, so we're going to give you a 0% zero interest loan. We're going to give you basically free money. We're going to give you, in this case, taxpayer dollars to supplement something that you could afford already. And we're doing that at the expense of paying for things that we should really invest in, like public education. And in this public education, one of the things that we need to do, I mean, we certainly need, STEM and STEAM. These are all good, and these are things that I like. But the arts, the part of STEAM, which basically means that to some people everything, are very important. These are getting neglected. And the ones that I really desperately want us to add that just are not there and that everybody needs are civics. Like, you need to know how government works. You need to know how to participate in it. You need to understand that your vote counts. So many people are under this delusion, this disgusting delusion, that their vote does not count. And even if the winning or losing person wins or loses by a great margin, your vote counted. Because if in mass a lot of people who voted with you did not, that can change the outcome. That's how it works. Pretty much every election in the US, the people who don't vote could have changed the election. They could have changed the outcome. Now, think about what that says. These are people who have completely, they have all this power in their hands, and through either learned helplessness or indifference or whatever they're letting it go. Now, this to me is very sad. So in addition to that, we need to teach, and really we need to teach this at every level, but critical thinking, real critical thinking. Now, I'm not saying teach a particular interpretation of the facts, but teach people how to interpret facts, how to interpret evidence, how to weigh evidence, and how to say, okay, there are a bunch of news sources, and I can't necessarily trust any of them, but which ones are reputable and which ones are not? And when you have a story, and you have to, this is an important thing, and this is one thing that bothers me, Facebook now is having a rating system where they will show this is a reputable source and this is not. Well, you shouldn't need that, first of all. And if you train people to actually use that, then all you're going to do is train people to trust some wild, just arbitrary metric that is dependent on whoever is in control of Facebook, which now might be somebody who's benevolent, but at some point in the future may not be. You have to think for yourselves. You have to learn that. It doesn't take that much effort. It doesn't take that much time. It just takes the will to do so and a little bit of work to learn how. So this is something that we desperately need. Critical thinking. Civics. We need, and actually, I know so many people are like, oh, Scott, mathematics is totally, I never needed mathematics in my life. Well, the thing is, if you don't understand how to use a hammer, if you don't have a hammer, how do you even know that it wouldn't have helped you? It's like I've been putting nails in with my wrench my whole life, and it works for me. Well, sure, it works for you, but you don't know that there's this other tool that's so much better. You don't know how to use it to your advantage. And so what I'm trying to get to here is statistics. So this will be the last thing I say in this, because this is getting to be a very long video. But in the election of 2016, I've seen so many people say, oh, the statistics were all wrong, the polls were all wrong. The polls were not wrong. The statistics were not wrong. I watched 538, and I was in horror and screaming at everyone who I could get to listen that Hillary could lose this thing. And I'll tell you why. It's not because I had some special insight. It's simply because I understood statistics, and a lot of people who were looking at this didn't. And it's not like this is a hard. The thing that pains me about this is it's not like you have to have great understanding of mathematics. The odds, it wasn't like she's going to win, she's going to lose. It was a statistical probability. The odds of her winning were between 50-50, which is a coin toss. At some points, it was a coin toss between the two of them. And at best, at the very best. Her winning was the same as winning Russian roulette. Which, I don't know about you, I would not play Russian roulette. Even though the odds are 1 in 6, it seems really dangerous. So, though that's the range of it. And people did not weigh that properly. They took this, well, 1 in 6 is really small, so it must be 0 kind of approach. Which is ludicrous. So, that will be the last thing that I say. Thank you very much. I will be back.